Barbarian was one of my favorite movies of the last few years. It was directed by Zach Cregger of Whitest Kids You Know fame. I went in with zero expectations and came out a huge fan. But now it's time for a follow-up, a movie that's getting a ton of praise. Apparently it was like a bidding war for the script. Jordan Peele's company lost out on it and they were apparently very frustrated. And now this movie is coming out. It has, I think, a $40 million budget, some big actors, Julia Garner, Josh Brolin. So the hype is kind of insane for this, unfairly so. I think it premiered on Rotten Tomatoes at 100%. I think it's down to like 96%. Still, that's super high. People are talking about this like, oh, we might have the next horror classic, the next horror masterpiece. I wish I could say that is the case. Before I go further, hi, I'm Jake. This is Woman Carrying Man. That's enough of that. Nadia is not here today to talk about this film because she did not want to watch it alone. She's a little scaredy cat. I wish she had seen it, but I think it would have been a little too intense for her, especially considering it's a film about missing children. I'm going to make a comparison later in this video in the spoiler section to a recent horror film that came out that this movie is very similar to in tone and substance. It's a movie I did not like. I feel like revealing the movie that this is super similar to would kind of be a spoiler for this film because I do think it benefits to go into this movie with zero knowledge of what happens. In fact, don't even watch the trailers. But if you do watch the trailers, I don't think they give that much away. But I'll talk about this comparison in the spoiler section. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. First off, I think that this is a good movie. I just want to talk a little bit about expectations and what I was hoping to get. Now, this is kind of like a problem of this movie having one of the best premises of horror movies of recent years. It's in all the marketing, it's on the poster. It's one day at 2:17 a.m., all these kids get up out of bed and go disappear. And they're all kids from the same classroom. This teacher is, of course, the target of a lot of suspicion because why did all of her kids, except for one, in this classroom vanish on the same night? A wild premise. And in the trailer and in the movie, it's they all disappeared, blah, blah, blah. There's some voiceover narration and they never came back. What the hell happened? What could this movie deliver on this subject? And this movie certainly delivers in a way I didn't expect. And here's where I want to talk about a thing that I don't necessarily love about the horror genre right now. And that is that some movies come with these great mysteries of like, okay, what are we doing? Where is this going? And then it kind of just becomes a strict genre movie. And I love genre films, but it's kind of set up. I feel like a lot of these filmmakers feel an obligation to like set it up with this like elevated horror premise, or not even elevated horror, just like a more of a cosmic mystery, like a dark unknown whatever. And then at a certain point in the movie you go, oh, we're doing this genre. Oh, we're doing this type of movie. It's aliens or it's vampires or it's, and I guess Sinners is sort of guilty of this, but I think Sinners is a little more straightforward in what it is. I really did like this movie. Weapons is a fascinating movie. It was getting compared to Magnolia in a lot of ways, and I can sort of see that. It has like a Rashomon style structure where we're following different characters. Events are overlapped and overlaid, but the plot still works for it. It's very well plotted. It's like a very tight structured movie. So in that sense, very different from Magnolia. We follow the character of Justine. We follow Archer, who's a father who his son vanished. Justine is the teacher. And what I like about this movie is that these feel like real people. They don't feel like people in a horror movie. They feel like people in just a movie or in the world. Justine is not a perfect person. She's not like a perfect character to be like attacked by a mob or called a witch, which happens in this movie. She is kind of a bad person. There's a lot of bad people in this movie. This movie is really about people making bad decisions and what that leads to and how people do things in the wake of tragedy or the unknown, in the face of the unknown, how do we deal with things? That was very interesting to me. I was locked into this movie, the first half of it. I was so locked in. I was loving it. I loved the dialogue scenes. It felt so real and natural. There was like humor, but it was just very weird and unsettling. And then it kind of reveals what it is. And at that point, I was like, oh, this is fine. It's just not what I expected, nor is it what I really love to see in movies. So it was kind of like, I really feel like if I watch this movie again, knowing what it becomes in the second half, I'd enjoy it a lot more. But again, a lot of like movie reviewers were so subjective. I think that's something that it's important to admit, that all of us, we come into a movie kind of knowing what we want and expecting something in a certain way. And when that doesn't happen, it can be disappointing. This movie underwhelmed me a little bit. Of course, I had high expectations compared to Barbarian. I had no expectations. I had high expectations going into this, and I expected something that would wow me unlike anything. It delivers something that's impossible, which is like, how do you answer this question satisfyingly? I'll get into spoilers and how that how that question is solved, but suffice to say, this movie is basically a comedy. Was not very scary to me. There are some good horror moments. The premise itself is kind of the scariest part, and then it becomes, I don't want to get into spoilers, but it changes tone a lot. My favorite parts of the movie didn't have anything to do with horror. It just had to do with following these characters. Alden Ehrenreich's cop character, very similar in way, kind of like the dark opposite of John C. Reilly's character in Magnolia. Justine, their relationship, how that works. Archer as a character, I thought was very amusing. I like Josh Brolin. I just like watching him on screen. You'd expect a movie like this to be a lot more like soaking in trauma and about trauma. And I guess it is in a way, but it's not like a movie closely following the despair of people with missing children, I could see another filmmaker approaching this topic in a very grim, like, hurts your stomach to watch. This movie is like a kind of a fun roller coaster of fear and laughter. All right, maybe I should just get into spoilers because I do want to talk about this. But before I get into that, I just want to say the directing, the filmmaking is very confident. It's very good. I like the way that Zach Cregger moves the camera. It's definitely far and above most horror movies coming out today. I absolutely recommend people go see it in theaters and make up your mind. I was teetering on the edge of giving this a 4 out of 5 stars, but I really think my heart is at now like 3.5. I really wanted to like this movie more, and it let me down a little bit. It underwhelmed me in its conclusions and what it ended up doing. Like, it has very interesting stuff it's saying, but I wish that it had developed things a little more, characters, themes. In some ways, it leans into comedy too much, in that I just was kind of pulled out of caring that much about what happens to these characters. I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars or a 7 out of 10. Yeah, let's get into spoilers. I have a lot to say about this. 3, 2, 1. Spoilers. You've been warned. It's a witch movie. It's a creepy witch that takes the kids into a house. There are things that, as I watched this movie, I was going, this doesn't, very implausible stuff that kind of pulled me out. But again, you have to suspend your belief. Like, it wants to be very real about the characters and exploring these relationships, but also it just wants to be a goofy, evil witch movie, which I found kind of fun and refreshing. And I do think that there is a lot being said just about tragedy, especially relating to children, and how our culture is about protecting children, while at the same time there's gun violence and horrible, horrible school shootings. And this movie clearly is drawing parallels to that. People have been talking about this for a while, ever since the premise of this movie came out. It's called Weapons, and it's about a classroom of kids that are gone. I'm glad that Zach Cregger didn't make this like an overt metaphor movie about gun violence and school shootings. That would have been wrong, I think. Not wrong, it just would have been unsatisfying, and like, all right, that movie exists, people can make that movie, but it wouldn't be like exciting and different and fun. And I think that's what's great about this, that it is exciting, different, and fun. There's tangents that it goes down. There's characters you don't expect to follow, like the drug addict character who is on the streets, and we follow his journey and everything. Like, there's a very similar scene where he breaks into the creepy house with the parents just sitting there on the couch. It's a very similar scene to that one in Barbarian, where Justin Long, it keeps investigating the tunnels under the house. The audience being like, what are you doing? Like, don't you see the red flags here? Just get out, get out. I will say my audience was not vibing with this movie as much as I was. I kind of wish I had a better audience. I think that people were kind of like, this isn't that scary. This isn't like... The movie that this movie is so similar to of recent years is, of course, Long Legs. Starts as kind of like a investigation, which this movie has that investigation element. And then halfway through, there's a reveal of what's actually happening. We're shown sort of everything, and everything's explained in detail, and there's a very campy, over-the-top, evil character performance. In Long Legs, that was Nicolas Cage, and in this movie, I don't remember the actress's name, but she gives a terrific performance as this witch character who just shows up. I kind of like that. I do kind of enjoy that her presence wasn't really explained. It is revealed when this character goes into the house who's trying to get, drug money. He sees where the kids are, and they're just all standing in the basement. Everyone's in the audience is just like, oh. And as soon as that reveal happened, I was like, oh, interesting. And then I was like, oh, that's it? Like, and that's where maybe my expectations are wrong. And my ideas about this movie is like the premise of the movie kind of lies to you. And that's what frustrated me a little bit. Even the start of the movie starts with that opening narration that ends with, all these kids vanish and they never came back. It's on the poster. It's in the trailers. They never came back. They do come back. They're changed and apparently have some kind of like brain damage or something connected to witchcraft, but they do come back. So it's kind of lying to you about what happens in the movie. And that's like, look, that's a nitpick. But for me, I was kind of hoping, okay, well, how do they deal with this premise of the kids never come back? What is going on? How do we reach a satisfying conclusion? And I was kind of hoping for something that would be a little frustrating of like, you never really know. Like the terror and the fear of the unknown of these mysteries just leading nowhere, like that maybe they just don't know what happened to these kids. And I think that'd be way more scary, at least to me. I think that'd be a less commercial movie. And it's definitely a totally different movie than Zach Cregger was trying to make. So I can't even blame him. I'm just talking about where my expectations were and the kind of movie I'd have wanted to see. This is fine too. It becomes like a monster movie with zombies and witches. And that was fun. It's a fun movie. I wish that it leaned more. And there's a moment that is kind of Lynchian and mysterious where Josh Brolin's character is having a dream and he goes and he sees the house where all the kids end up being in. And he looks above the house and there's a giant CGI AK-47 or assault rifle or something. And the time of when the kids vanished, 217 is on it. And it's like, what is that was like my peak interest in the movie, because I was going, are we doing something weird and Lynchian and like things aren't going to be explained and like metaphor, just imagery leading to unknowns? Like I was just, obviously I love David Lynch, but I was kind of hoping for something that would be less conclusive and less like, well, there you go. It was an evil witch. And then once we get into the story of the little kid who we see what happens and what was really behind all the kids vanishing, the kid's aunt shows up and then suddenly she's possessing the parents, using them to heal herself or get younger. And she ends up needing all of the kids in his classroom to basically heal herself or whatever. And it's like very creepy and unsettling. And I think the kid gives a pretty good performance. But at that point, the mystery is solved. And I'm just kind of like, okay, I get it. There's the witch and she's going to take the kids and then let's see what happens next. And the finale of the movie is kind of like an action movie. I like when Josh Brolin keeps fighting the possessed guy who just keeps coming for him and keeps attacking him over and over. Like there's nothing he can do to stop. It's like a super entertaining movie. It's like a horror comedy. And I really loved the ending. Some people have said they don't, but I also saw the ending coming a while ago. As soon as Josh Brolin in the movie said something like targeted weapon, when he's talking about Wong's character who attacks Julia Garner earlier in the movie, he's like, it's like he was a weapon like designed to, like a heat-seeking missile or something like that. And then I went, oh, so the kids are the weapons. Like that's how the title works. And the kids become weapons, and the kids are going to be weaponized to some extent in the film. I don't know why or how, but it turns out that at the end of the film, the kid, he does the witchcraft thing with the stick and he breaks the stick, and all the kids who are in the basement go and chase after the witch. And there's this very hilarious, my audience wasn't really laughing though. I felt like the only one laughing. I'm like, I wish my audience really vibed with this movie. I feel like that would have helped my enjoyment so much. I feel like they were kind of tonally confused. I loved that they chased down the witch and literally tear her limb from limb in a very gory sequence. And to me, that was like a catharsis. Like I enjoyed that element of the movie so much that it feels like a catharsis for this concept of like, school shooting, mass loss. Like, how do you cope and deal with this? And it feels like a wish fulfillment thing, kind of like a Tarantino at the end of Inglourious Bastards or Django Unchained. Like, what if in the wake of these horrible tragedies that are unexplainable and awful, there is some evil witch behind the scenes and all the kids can have their, revenge. So in that sense, it was kind of a beautiful moment. Josh Brolin's reunited with his son, but it's revealed that the kids aren't really the same afterwards. Although the little girl narrator says that some of them are able to talk again. It is kind of a lie in the premise. The kids do come back. They are found. But I do kind of like how it kind of flips it on the head. Like you think it's going to be one thing, and then it's like this crazy monster movie with a witch and these kids kind of literally destroying the scapegoat or the true like evil person. Like that's what was interesting to me, I guess. And that's what might raise my rating of this movie over time of like, it is kind of saying a lot and not saying a lot. It is about, I think, school shooting and violence and, horror in small towns by being about a witch. It is satisfying. There's some good sequences in this movie, but I think people are going to be very divided. I think the high critic rating is going to be misleading to some people, and not all of it works. I do want to see it again, but I still kind of wish, like, damn, that's such a great premise. I wish you had done a little more with it. The whole sequence where Wong brings, or the aunt shows up at Wong's house, who's the principal, and starts, instead of asking for a cup of water, asks for a bowl of water. And as soon as that happened, I was like, wait, is this just like a witch thing? Like, is she just a witch? And that's exactly what happens. And I'm like, man, I don't find her that scary. Like, she's sort of creepy, but I'm like, oh, we're just doing like witchcraft, where she's just like an evil witch possessing people. Part of the enjoyment is just the mystery. And I really wish maybe if they had dragged the mystery out more, or just, I don't know, like, could have been better. Longlegs, of course, is like the much worse version of this movie, where tonally, this movie knows how to balance the tone way better than Longlegs, where it's like impossible, like such tonal clash that it's impossible to take seriously, and the mystery is explained in a totally obnoxious way. Does not work, in my opinion. I really dislike Longlegs. I enjoyed The Monkey. We're talking about Osgood Perkins now. Barbarian, I think, is a better movie than Weapons, but Weapons might be just more interesting overall, at least from someone trying to analyze it. Let me know what you thought of Weapons. Let me know if you're going to see it or not. And thanks for watching, everyone. Nadia will be back in the next video.